This is Matt Brown, and you're listening to Just a Good Conversation. From time to time, you find something good on YouTube. I was lucky enough to find Paul Chato when looking for a review for a movie. I found his deep understanding of what made TVs and movies fantastic and intoxicating, as well as his ability to play the straight man in the appalling news pieces. Finding this former TV executive with a sharp wit and a clever mind was a highlight in 2023.
Grant Tinker made a comment when he was the CEO of NBC, just at the beginning of cable, a fraction of the opportunities that we have now. A fraction. No streaming. Maybe there was Showtime. Maybe there was HBO for sure. Maybe 10 other stations. And he said the problem with TV is that there's too much of it.
I'm Matt Brown, host of Just a Good Conversation. Take a listen to our archives. My guests have ranged from Oscar winners, fashion designers, restaurant owners, and professional photographer David Bergman.
I was kind of fumbling around a little bit, and I stumbled into the school newspaper. The Miami Hurricane was a twice-a-week paper, and run by students. And I just stumbled in one day. I had a camera, I had a Canon AE1 program, and I had shot some black and white film. Even when I was at Berkeley, I was shooting a little bit like my friends' bands. Instead of performing, I was photographing my friends' bands, and I kind of enjoyed that. But it was a hobby. It wasn't anything I took very seriously. I did have prints made of those shows, and sometimes the guys in the dorms would all come to our room and they wanted to see the pictures and they wanted to buy them. So I would sell prints for like $1 each.
The rest of my conversation with David can be found on our archives at justagoodconversation.com. Let's take a quick break for a sponsor before diving into my conversation with Paul Chato. Maine Farmhouse Brands was started by Dan McCool, a healthcare professional. His goal was to make premium soap. Most people may not realize how important the right soap is for their health and the difference between soap and detergent. Soap is made from natural ingredients like animal and plant fats, whereas detergent is made from synthetic, often harsh chemicals, even fossil fuels like petroleum. Maine Farmhouse Brands makes their own soap with natural ingredients, free from harsh chemicals. So if you want to keep your skin healthy and clean, I would recommend using Maine Farmhouse Brand soap instead of detergent. You can find their body wash, shave soaps, laundry soap, and beard oils, and more at mainfarmhousebrands.com. I have got one of the most exciting guys on YouTube. I'm going to say it right now. Yes, right now. Paul, how in the hell are you?
Very good, Matt.
Like I said before we hit record, I'm so glad I went to 4 hours of Oppenheimer because that's how I found you.
Yeah. Oppenheimer, it was an interesting movie.
Yeah. I wanted to do a preview or look for a preview before the movie because I knew the story. I had read about it. It was very interesting. Okay. And my fear was what they were going to do to that period of time, which I think a lot of people don't really know. And you were really spot on your review. And the catchy part was the black and white with the fedora. You hooked me with that.
I like my thumbnails. They're fun to do. I
can see that. Yeah, you don't throw them away. You put some thought into your thumbnails.
Yeah.
And
they don't tend to be also of a kind. They don't tend to be the same. Like I don't try to develop a thumbnail style. It's whatever I have fun with. I'm a graphic designer, former graphic designer and Photoshop guy from version 1 of Photoshop. So to me, and I'm not on Photoshop. I've dumped all of Adobe's pieces of crap software. I'm not paying their usurious monthly rate for that stuff. I want to own my software.
Now, obviously this podcast is just going to be audio, but I was really hoping you were going to wear your brown jacket.
I can go get it if you want.
No. I just love that where I can almost feel your moods. What's it going to be? Is it going to be the suede? Is it going to be the business jacket? Like, how is Paul going to dive into any of this day?
Yeah, I got many moods of brown.
Yeah, you do. It's very Reagan-esque of where he.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. Although Obama got nailed for that tan suit.
Oh yeah.
This is the stupidity of like, really? You're going to go after him for a suit. Like, I mean, your
I think
politics
GQ
are so
did an
funny.
article. Yeah, New York
Their
Times
politics
fashion.
are so funny.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just insane.
Yeah, there was nothing else going on. Let's pick at the man's
yeah,
suit.
that's right.
Yeah, God forbid.
Yep. The first black president that tried his best not to be the first black president.
Yeah, and that didn't go so well. You can't wear that fashion. How do two Hungarian people find their way to Canada and in 1954 present the world with Paul?
Well, it'd be 1947, but then I was born in 54. But they escaped from Hungary just at the beginning of Soviet occupation. My dad, I can't remember what his route was, but my mom went her way. She went overland at night with a minder, with a gun, like he had the gun, and they had to escape from safe house to safe house and go that route. And the most important person in that group was the minder, because that person would go back and get more people. So you had to make sure that you did what that person did and not risk their life. Your life was less important than the minder's,
right?
Your guide's life, actually. So with parents like that, there's no way as a teenage boy you were ever like, I'm having a horrible day, because I'm sure they're like, you have no idea what a horrible day is. I don't think they ever pulled that on me. So first of all, I mean, my mom was a Jew, and she was in the ghetto, and luckily didn't manage to get shipped off to any of the concentration camps. Right. But I mean, that counts as surviving the Holocaust. I mean, all the rest of my relatives, younger relatives, all got shipped off, right. Died. Dad, actually, because his father, do you want this?
Yes, because it's an interesting backstory to you.
So my dad was Jewish, a Slovakian Jew who married a Presbyterian Hungarian woman, but the Austro-Hungarian Empire stretched quite far, so Slovak Hungarians existed. And at the turn of the century, the Hungarian government had an edict that all non-Jews had to become Christians, mostly Catholic. Wow. And so he was part of that. So my dad was kind of half Jewish on his dad's side, although that doesn't count because you're supposed to be Jewish on your mother's side, but it doesn't matter. So, I mean, if I go through, I did the ancestry.ca and I'm, how everybody is a little bit of Irish, a little bit from, Nicaragua, a little bit of Scottish, a little bit of Japanese or whatever. No, I'm Eastern European, 75% Jew.
That's it. Done.
There's done. Like there's just two big blobs. Like nothing. There's no other fancy. Oh, you're South Asian here. A bit of spicy stuff over. No. That's it.
You were just. They just said sir.
And I was actually raised a Presbyterian, and because neither of my parents expected anything better in Canada. Why would they?
Sure.
I mean, they lived through pogroms like every 10 years. I tell people the Holocaust was just the most well run.
Yeah. Everyone
thinks that, this is this singular event. No, I mean, it was every 10 years. Oh, here comes another pogrom. And so there was no reason for them to think that life would be any better in Canada. So as soon as I was born, they just went to a church, and I was a Presbyterian for till I was 18. Then we went to Hungary, and then what remaining relatives were there, my brother was the one who realized it and said, "Hey, Paul, you realize that all our relatives are Jews?" I went, and we confronted Mom, and she didn't think that we would notice.
Really?
No, for whatever reason, she just didn't think that. So then that began a new journey. I mean, one of the good things about it was just our family in Canada. So we're all like lonely-ish. I mean, we felt alone. It wasn't like, if I had a Irish or Italian girlfriend, then I'd go to their stupid party or their picnic in some goddamn ravine somewhere. There'd be 8,000 of them.
Yes.
What the hell is going on? The McGonagalls and the McClarleys and the blah, 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 blah.
Forever. Just
like a giant extended family. And I just had my parents and my brother, right? Which always made you feel lonely.
So tell me about this aunt, though. The aunt that somehow presented comedy to you. She was the funny one.
So she was my favorite relative, Aunt Munyo. She looked like a flapper. She was a giant piece of asparagus where her eyebrows were shaved off, and then she just painted on new eyebrows higher. Had that look. And she was an actress in Budapest. And at that time, and I have, and you probably saw it on the website, I have her union book of the stamps.
Yes.
And what's funny is that you can also see the stamps transition from pre-Soviet Hungary to after Soviet Hungary, because they turned into sort of like red stars of communism. But she continued to act. Wonderful woman. She could do about 30 different, what do you call them? Light puppets.
Really?
Oh, yeah. She was like just a master of light puppetry. And she would entertain me whenever I went over to her place with all the different characters, turkeys and ducks and things like that. And she would tell stories with just her hands, and he would just look at the wall. And unbelievable, magical. It was magical. And what was really interesting at the time was you couldn't be both a dramatic actress and a comedian. But she was a very funny person. So in Hungary, once you traversed that line and decided to become a comedian, you could never go back, because comedy was the devil's artwork. I mean, it was just only the classics were important. And so, that apparently hurt her, that she couldn't go back to doing classical work. But she was my favorite relative. She was just a wonderful, joyous, funny, crazy, skinny woman. She kind of looked like olive oil from Popeye.
Do you feel a little bit of your comedic timing sense, the way your brain works, to her?
Possibly. I was also told that another relative, Artur Baci, which is Uncle Arthur, that I was a lot like him, too. My grandfather apparently was a clown, which I had no idea that he was a professional clown for a period of time. He was kind of a funny person, too. So I guess it was in there. Oh, my mom wanted to be an actress. I mean, she was a very funny woman. She would always dress up to go out to the supermarket.
Oh, yes.
And anytime the camera turned on her, it'd be the coquettish, one leg in front of the other.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
She was,
very aware.
Very aware of the camera.
Wow.
So I don't know. My mom was a pessimist. My dad was an optimist.
That must have been a fun house.
Yeah, it was. And I don't know. I just loved comedy. I don't know where it came from. I loved it all the time. I listened to the Goon shows when I was like really tiny and young.
Is that where you started to feel a path when you were younger, that you loved comedy? You made people laugh?
I was an extrovert from early on. So there are a lot of people out there, if you talk to them, they go, well, I'm really an introvert, but the way I dealt with it was to be an extrovert, to cover up my own personal problems and things like that. No, I was... not that I didn't have my own personal problems, but I was an extrovert. I was an extrovert. Well, where's my shirt?
Yeah, there you go. I mean, so when did you start? Was it high school? Did you get into drama? Did you find a place to explode?
Grade school.
Okay.
Grade school, I was, we had a grade 5 teacher who made a cardboard television screen, and once a week, kids would volunteer to do fake news or TV. So we would sit behind the, this giant cutout square, and I was the only guy. At the time, guys didn't get involved in acting or anything like that, really.
No, wasn't cool.
It wasn't cool. So there was the 3 girls, Geraldine McAlpine. Got to remember. Anyways, yes.
I'm impressed you remember one.
Kaylee Weinstein and It's on the tip of my brain. And Mr. Dodge, we would do it, and I don't know whether it was good or not, but I enjoyed it, and he didn't ever stop me from doing it. And then in grade 6, I apparently was lucky enough to have landed the most favorite teacher in the school. Unfortunately, he wanted to be the funniest person in the classroom, and I wanted to be the funniest person in the classroom, so we clashed.
Oh. Uh-oh. Was there like a comedy smack off between the two of you on a daily basis?
No, but I got a sense that he was very supportive occasionally, but I also got the sense that, like, who is this kid? I'm the most popular I have the reputation for being the most fun teacher and most fun person, and this kid is cramming my action. So we were butting heads often.
Well, if you have a teacher like Robin Williams, yeah, that would be difficult.
Well, Robin Williams would have been on another level. That's truly funny. There's people who are kind of think they're funny, but they're not really. Yeah. Although the best teacher I had was grade 4, Mr. McKee, who was the most feared teacher in grade school. Absolutely the most feared teacher. He had a brown suit, looked like an undertaker, tall. And at the time, they had this torturous thing they used to do was you found out who your teacher next year was at the end of the previous year.
Yes, I remember that.
And they would line you up in the the outdoor, basketball courts or whatever. And then you'd go, Paul Chato. No, not Mr. McKee. Not Mr. McKee. Please, not Mr. McKee. Mr. McKee. And then so the entire summer, that's all you can think about. And it's funny because what I learned when I got in his class was he was the most fair teacher I ever had. You did your work, you handed it on time, no problem.
So he just had a bad rep
because he didn't like you got punished for not doing your work.
Yeah, he held you accountable.
You held people accountable. Now, the other thing, too, is he had an unerring ability to hear someone yakking in the class, whip around and hit him with a piece of chalk.
He had an arm.
So from 50 feet away. I don't think that's allowed now.
Well, I don't think you could find chalk in any school district in America anymore.
And he was good. Like the guys around me would be yakking and suddenly twang.
Bang in the ear hole, little piece of chalk. Bang.
Oh, my eye.
They need to bring chalk beating back. Come on. Just a little nick.
I think they still have chalk. I don't know. They have whiteboards now. You can't say whiteboards.
No, it's a board.
You need colonial oppression boards.
Exactly. God forbid. It's a board you're allowed to touch with.
Gently. Maybe not. Yeah.
Gently. Yeah. Where then was your thought as you're getting older, your career path and your kind of arts? Because you're very art heavy, right?
Well, I was a science nerd to begin with. And to me,
that's dangerous.
The thing that bothers me the most is how incurious people are these days. And I was massively curious about everything. And I don't think you can get into the arts unless you're a curious person to begin with. And again, what's really neat was being in the mechanical pre-digital days where you could see how something worked and then got interested. So it gave you enough clues to want to find out how it worked. When you're dealing with this thing, as magical as this phone is, I'm holding up a phone, it's a podcast, I'm holding up a phone, is that this is a brilliant device, but it's inscrutable. Mm-hmm. Why would anyone, it doesn't give you any clues as to how it works. That's part of the problem. So I remember one time, I guess it was in grade school, there was this wonderful guy. One of the kids in my class, his dad worked at the de Havilland aerospace facility in Canada. Now, de Havilland made planes. And one day, there's this guy walking along the sidewalk happily, and he's got the brown leather briefcase, and again, it's a guy in a suit and a hat, which is what you did in that era. That's how you went to work. And he's holding this briefcase at one corner of the four corners with a finger. The rest of the briefcase is just sticking out, floating. And he's just walking along slowly, waiting for kids to surround him like the Pied Piper. Now, do you know why and how that worked? Do you know what was going on?
Well,
I gave you a clue.
Yeah, he must have had counterweight in the corner.
Nope, not a counterweight. What would cause him? And his finger was right at the corner. You couldn't have put a counterweight. That would have prevented
the weight in the suitcase on his
the finger. Nope,
right?
No. I'll tell you.
What was
it? Was a gyroscope.
Oh God!
And now remember pulling those old tops and
Yeah.
gyroscopes, and then they would not fall down. And you had they always gave you a bit of pushback when you tried to turn them around. Well, he had a gyroscope, battery-powered gyroscope from a commercial airplane at the time, and he was taking it home to look at it and fix it or whatever, muck around with it, and it had a giant battery. So this briefcase was super heavy, but then he opened it up and he put it on the ground and he showed all the kids, and then he lifted it up and he let each of us try holding it on, and then he also let us try to turn it. You couldn't.
Right, yeah.
You could not change the attitude of this briefcase when that massive gyroscope was turning, because that was what was being used in the airplanes when you would take a look at your instrument panel and you had your level indicator, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if anybody's being introduced to that kind of stuff. And that was those are the moments that I remember so clearly, and how I wanted to learn more about what was going on there and how did this magical thing happen. I conducted a science class quite a few years ago in my daughter's class. I was brought in, and I filled a beaker half full of water, and I asked the kids to tell me everything they could about that beaker. I think they might have gotten 4 out of 50 attributes. They just couldn't see more.
Right.
They couldn't see more and then I started going through them, anyway, I won't go through it now.
Right.
But again, part of the problem is technology has made us incurious because it's impenetrable to more people. So for those individuals who are partially curious, this technology has made it even more difficult for them to dive into anything, dive down that rabbit hole further. And I feel badly. Sorry, I'm monopolizing this, but I one of the things I did with both of my kids was show them my turntable.
Yeah.
I still have a turntable. And then I sat them down and I would put the needle down, and there was a direct connection between this thing hitting this thing and then audio happening. And that's different from this phone and the iPods and things like that, which hide the magic. That's why, I loved about the turntable, and I would ask the kids, what's going on here? And I got them to think about it. How's this working? They couldn't quite figure it out. And so I got a crappy record, of course. I took a paper cone, stuck a needle through it, a sewing needle. And I said, what's going to happen when I touch the sewing needle to this record? They went, I don't know. And I said, well, you can see that this thing is going through an amplifier. It's going through this bit of electronics, and you hear it in the speaker. And then I put the cone down, and it made crappy sound. And I went, so how the hell is this working? There's no electricity. There's no speaker. Why are you hearing sound? And it's like that just completely flummoxed them. But then we slowly went through it, and that's unbelievably magical.
Yes, it is. And kids don't have that today.
No.
As simple as that. You remember it being 20 years ago, you sit at a dinner party, there's 4 of us or 4 of you, and you'd sit and someone would come up with, oh, do you remember so-and-so? They were on that show or that event. And you would sit around. If no one remembered, you'd kind of banter. Oh, I don't know if it was then or was it. Now someone just goes, oh, let me Google it.
That I don't mind.
Yeah.
That I don't mind. My wife is the master Googler. We'll be watching a show. Oh, didn't that person, wasn't that person divorced 3 times and killed their son? Let me just look that up.
Yeah. And then,
yes.
Yeah. And then you're watching the show and she's giving you play-by-play of, yep, 75, he divorced, and 78, he remarried again, and then he divorced. Yeah, and you're like.
That I don't mind. That part I don't mind. But right now, schools have, they've gotten rid of home ec. They've gotten rid of metal shop, wood shop.
Yeah.
Sports are now reduced to almost nothing. And there's no financial literacy. So they've backfilled it with this useless, stupid, critical race theory, gender, blah, blah, blah. And that's what they're occupying their time with. And they can't even do the math right.
Right. And then they wonder why there won't be anybody to, undo
flashcards.
Right.
Okay. Flashcards, you Nazi.
Yeah.
What? You're actually recommending flashcards? Well, unfortunately, it's the best. And the thing is, when you're an actor, and these are the things that they don't realize in schools, is that there's multiple ways of learning. So when they freak out, like one teacher I know freaked out over flashcards, and I went, no, that's just a mechanical way of learning. You don't want to do just that in the same way you don't want to do just whole learning. You learn from a whole bunch of things. Each one adds up to a whole. Mm-hmm. But they go, oh, my God, flashcards, that's like brutal. It's failure. The kids will feel badly. No, you just make them do it.
Right.
Make them do it. And then that's just another way of learning. And in creativity, there's no one way to be creative either, because when you're writing thousands of sketches like we had to do for our radio show, you go, okay, there's the sketch that you can be languid about, write it over a week or something. You never would, but you would, let's say, write it over a week. That produces a different sketch from someone who just opens the door and says, you got to have a sketch ready in 10 minutes. You couldn't do, you wouldn't want to be writing either way all the time.
Oh yeah, no.
But you come up with a different sketch and you go, I never would have come up with that if that person hadn't have put the flame under my ass.
Yeah. Put the screws
and
to you.
Finish that in 10 minutes.
Yeah. It's amazing too, especially if you have ideas to bounce off somebody, how long that 10 minutes can seem. You're
for sure.
We got ideas. And then you could sit around with the same guy at a coffee shop for 4 hours and you're scratching your ass because you can't come up with anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
so there's one way to do this. One way to do this stuff, which is like schools are really concerned about the one way.
Right.
The unified field theory of learning.
And we're going to jump around because we're on
that's my brain.
Well, and we're on time constriction. Otherwise, this is a 12-hour podcast.
Okay, ask. Yeah, we've talked about stuff that I didn't expect to talk about, but that's fine. Hopefully it's okay.
Where do you find Rick Green?
Rick and I went to high school together. He was 1 year ahead of me at Don Mills Collegiate.
So you just find this guy a buddy and you guys click.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the best.
And what happened was, again, it's the super creative individual and me, the technical nerd. So I was watching him he loved doing Super 8 films, like the beast that ate buffalo and Kung Fu Nun. And he would do just these stupid silent films on the Canon Super 8 camera. But then I show up and the asshole that I am, I go, where's your light meter? Like, I watched his films. I'm going, your movies are wildly lit all the way through. Sometimes I can see what's going on. Sometimes I can't. And so I barged in and just became the technical person, made sure that which is me. That's my shizzle. And
I'm sure Rick was really happy you jumped in to play DP on this. And
not really. He was kind of annoyed.
Yeah. Who are you with
But then I made sure that the videos all at least looked reasonably properly exposed.
Right. Because Kung Fu Nuns should look properly exposed.
The beast from Buffalo. Yeah, it's very fun.
So do you guys just stay together and something kind of works out over time?
So we did April antics together at the show. He went off to Waterloo University to do physics. At Ryerson, there was always a show called Riot, Ryerson Institute of Technology, RIOT. And at the time, sketch comedy was huge in Toronto. There was a show every year called Spring Thaw and Riot. People literally would show up in tuxedos to those shows.
Really?
Yeah.
Holy crap.
It was a very, very big deal. Spring Thaw especially would feature some of the best talent that Canada had at the time, which we had continued to do that. And Riot was just well known for being a fairly decent show and would even be reviewed in the major papers each year. So by the time I got to it, for whatever reason, the previous writers had kind of driven the show into the ground so badly that nobody was coming to it anymore. Like within 2 years, it was almost dead. Yeah, it was a drag. And it pissed me off because they would never let me in it. Not that I would have been any good to write. And so I got in my third year at Ryerson, I got to become head writer finally, got 2 other guys. We wrote the show. We thought it was pretty good. And then the director they brought on board hated it and chucked all our stuff. Oh. And so I put together a show called Riot Rejects by well, I can't remember. So I put a show called Riot Rejects. I couldn't get any. It was later in the year. I got 2 girls, very talented girls, to be in it, and I needed a guy. But all the guys at RTA were slackers and didn't study for their exams, and now they were panicked, and I couldn't get anybody on board. And so I called my friend Rick Green, who had already graduated that year from Waterloo, and he's a brilliant, fast memorizer of stuff. So the 4 of us put the show on for free in the pub, and then we just continued from there, never stopped.
How did it feel for your first couple of times to be on stage and to be in front of people?
Well, I had done some theater before that. I enjoyed it. I mean, I had a weird. I like being an expositionist, but I never liked doing it weirdly. I don't know.
Yeah. It makes sense because it's a very weird thing. It's one thing when you're funny around the family, and then
I never could understand why people would come and pay to see me.
Right.
Because I was just me. For years that weirded me out.
Yeah. I'm just Paul. What the hell are you here for?
Yeah.
Yeah. I do this all the time.
But I loved making people laugh, and it was fun. And
where did you find Peter and Dan?
So Rick and I were doing 2-man stand-up. We even went to New York, and we were on amateur night. They were very nice to us because amateur night would go at the Improv till like one person was left in the bar.
Right.
And Mitzi was really nice. Because we came from Canada, they put us on reasonably early. But people were starting to leave late at night. But as soon as we started, people all started coming back in. You could hear these whispers saying, "No, you got to come back, come back, come back, come back." And then comics came up to us and said, "We'd never seen anything like this in our lives. Like, this was the funniest thing we'd ever seen." And that was a really fun confirmation of what we were doing. It was very physical comedy. And
walk me through one. What was one skit?
So, we did one called the Star Trek sketch where we actually used a sombrero and a baseball bat. So I'd have the sombrero on, and I would be holding these 2 orange baseball bats. But then when we kicked into the music, da, 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 no, it's Star Wars. I can't remember the Star Trek thing.
Yeah, right, that's it. Yeah.
So what would happen was I would flip the sombrero back on my back, put the baseball bats like this, and I turned myself into the Starship Enterprise. And people would just freak out because they couldn't conceive how you turn a star. He's wearing a sombrero.
Yeah, where are you going? Yeah,
and he's got 2 orange baseball bats. It's online somewhere. You can look up the Frantics Star Trek sketch. And we also did every episode of James Bond in 5 minutes, where we just "Hello, James Bond, how are you?" like running around the stage. And we did some stupid stuff called Balloon Animals, where, again, it's the 2-man stuff. 2-man comedy is really stupid. But Rick goes, okay, now Paul is an expert balloon animal maker, and we're going to do a balloon animal thing. Rick, what is it? I forgot the balloons. What? You ass. Like, what are you going to do? Well, I'll just mime them. So, and so I did a whole mimed balloon animal thing, and he would say, okay, now this is the elephant, and this is the thing, and I put a big dick on it, and I would just mime all this stuff, and people had never seen anything like that before. So it was very inventive. And then I met Dan at a coffee house called the Nervous Breakdown, where we had a blind lighting person and a deaf sound guy. Now, they were legally blind, legally deaf. They weren't fully. And I remember, we would do these shows to half empty. I mean, they were practically empty. It was a coffee house. I remember doing one show in front of an audience of lesbians who were on because they were doing poetry about their vaginas.
Of course.
And they were all dressed in black, and there was only one blonde woman who was chunky, and they all had berets for some reason. I don't know why. And the big fat woman would be howling with laughter at Rick and me, and they would be constantly elbowing her, saying, "You don't laugh. Like, do not laugh at these two white straight boys." And we had a fun time. And Dan, we didn't know it was Dan. Dan, it was a puppeteer. And he had a bag stage. And a bag stage is something where you have a backpack and you have a rod that comes up the back that creates a circle around your head, and you have a curtain, like a shower curtain around you. So you have your own bag stage. And he had these foam puppets that were just brilliant that he cut out from foam, and they looked twisted and bizarre and sick. And he did this whole routine about God coming to earth as a piece of shit. And his minions kept stepping in him. And we're, oh my God, we're like dying from laughter. One, because it's blasphemous. And number two, the routine was just great. And he's a Catholic boy beaten by nuns. So he knew his scripture like top to bottom. So he was able to do this hilarious stuff. And then he came off stage, and I said, Dan, what are you doing? Can we get together and perform? He says, well, I'm going out to Calgary to meet my girlfriend. And I said, well, when you're back, call us, because we're gonna be a team. Like, absolutely, there's no way we're not going to get together. Then met Peter at the Pink Flamingo, and he was in a sketch troupe, and he was doing bits like he did this magic toilet bit. Like the Ronco toilet. Well, flip out the handle and you can make your own waffles while you're doing the shitty. And he was like talking so fast that we've never heard anybody speak so quickly. And the guy was super energetic. Like, just Peter was like a nuclear explosion. So we got together with him and Dan and Rick and I, and we became the Frantics. It was fun. The greatest time I ever had.
It looks like it. I went down the website, and there is great skits in there. I could tell the chemistry between the four of you.
We had a great time.
Even the most recent stuff, you could still see that there's still a click. There's obviously a connection.
Thank you. Yep.
That's years in the making.
Yes.
Yeah. Was there ever a point when you guys were doing that, you were doing the radio show, that you were thinking maybe you're going to come to the States? Was there a...
Well, we tried. Went to Plattsburgh for auditions for the university stuff, but they thought we were too weird.
Okay.
What we found with the United States was, and this is a generalization, but...
and this is at the time, too, right?
You're American, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that general American audiences didn't like to be surprised. I'm not talking about people who loved going to comedy per se.
Right.
Generally, we found that American audiences wanted to know ahead of time what they were going to see. They didn't like being surprised. Like, even if it was funny, they didn't like surprise. They go, okay, there's going to be religious-oriented material. Oh, it's all music. Or I'm not talking about like the Improv or
right.
places like that. And so we just didn't click in the United States because they couldn't peg us. They couldn't figure out. We weren't Jack Benny. We weren't Richard Pryor.
And you're not. And you're
once
not
you
doing
get famous in the United States, then your career takes off. Whereas in Canada, once you become famous, they hate you more. So the complete opposite happens in Canada.
And I've heard that. That is so weird. Why?
I don't know. It happens in the UK too. It's a very British thing.
Yeah, it's like they love your buildup, but then when you get there, they're like, let's just chop you down.
Yep. Yeah, you don't get too comfortable. Yeah, your whatever that, your boots are too big for your
britches and boots and your hat and all that crap. Just stay small.
Yeah, stay small. That's what, the definition of a Canadian superstar is someone recognized on the subway.
Makes sense.
But whereas the Americans loved brands, Americans love brand. And once you've got a brand, you can parlay that into a career. I mean, look at the Kardashians. I mean, that's you can be famous just for being famous. Right.
Which makes zero sense.
No, but it is a thing. I mean,
it is. It's frightening, but it is a thing.
So if we had spent more time in the United States and built our brand, then maybe we could have done it, but it was going to be way too big a slog. And in Canada, we sold out every single place we went to.
Right.
So.
Right. When you look back at that time, is it still warm your heart? Is it still special?
Oh, yeah. Very proud. Very proud. The one thing that bothered me for a bit of time was, the legacy fades.
Right.
But now, being older and more wiser and more aware of my body, there's a handful of people who can have a legacy without work. Most everybody, they don't have a legacy. What they have is a career.
Mm-hmm.
And once the career is over, they're done.
Right.
Like
you just don't hear of them anymore. They go.
Pardon me?
They don't hear them anymore. They're gone.
Correct. And out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
Once I came to that realization, it didn't bother me anymore. I had a great time. I would not replace it for the world. Yeah, there were mistakes. Yeah, we got ripped off here and there, and maybe we could have been better. But I also remember that at the time, at the height of our success, I also realized that show business was not very compatible with having a relationship.
No, it's not. It's tough.
Yeah, it's either one or the other. So I chose to raise my kids.
Right. And you easily have the best biopic on the Frantic website. I want people to check that out. That will have a direct link in the podcast, that biopic.
Thank you. We're still friends. Love the guys. We didn't split up.
That's the most important thing. You're still friends.
Yeah.
It can be done. You can closure on the whole thing as long as you're still communicating and you haven't slept with each other's wives and basically become Fleetwood Mac.
Not Fleetwood Mac. And every time we get together, we have such a good time. In fact, we had more fun getting to the gigs than the actual gigs.
Wow. That's good.
But we also had learned many lessons that I've used in business, which I won't get into now.
But those lessons learned, I'm sure, are fantastic because you don't get those in business school.
No, they wouldn't have learned. There's key things that we learned about the human condition and how we work with each other that it has held me in good stead over the year.
Tell me when you start to dabble into TV, and then there's the CBC time.
So we had our TV show, Four on the Floor, which for reasons we found out, but flummoxed us, that our producers decided not to call the show the Frantics because they wanted to own the brand. And so fewer people would. Yeah, of course it makes sense. Why make it easy for the 500,000 listeners to your radio show every week find you on TV? Why would that make sense? Anyway, and then we did that show. The show got canceled after Showtime decided not to pick up their end of the bargain. But that show got repeated to death. People have no idea that it's only 13 episodes. We kind of became the Star Trek of comedians. Then that was fun. And then I was offered the role of head of TV comedy at CBC. Did that for 3 years, spent a lot of time going to LA because we couldn't figure out the sitcom formula up here. All our sitcoms sucked. Okay. And they also looked bad.
And you've said that, and it's true. I've seen it. Why? Why was it like some bad PBS sitcom special in Canada? Why could they never figure it out?
Well, a couple things. Number one, they didn't look like American sitcoms. So immediately they didn't feel right. They looked amateurish. So that was one thing that I wanted to figure out because I was a techno nerd, right? And also... we didn't have the writing talent. We had the acting talent, but we didn't have the writing talent. And in the United States at the time, you have to remember a network would pay for maybe 100 scripts, and then they would pilot maybe 30 shows at a huge amount of money and put on 7, and maybe one would survive. There was no way in Canada could we afford that kind of formula.
Yeah.
No way. You basically had to put on every single thing that you came up with. Now, for whatever reason, we didn't have the same writing tradition as they had in the UK, where they made brilliant sitcoms, but that could also have been because they had a far larger source of talent than we had in Canada. Because we kind of reused the same talent over and over again. Mm-hmm. And they had writers who wrote plays. So, and there's that British thing. Everything you do with the British accent makes it sound immediately, that is more interesting. I don't know what it is.
Right.
But, I mean, you had To the Manor Born, you had On the Buses, you had Keeping Up with Appearances. You had a more unified culture in this smaller space than Canada. So part of the challenge of any sitcom is that it's easier when you've got an ethnocentric, single kind of ethnic grouping. Like you're British. Yeah, there's Irish, Scottish, Welsh, and then you've got the Northlands, you've got London, you've got Cockney. I mean, you've got Glasgow. I mean, but it was still kind of British. Whereas in Canada, as an immigrant country, you couldn't really nail down a Canadian thing. So that made it much more difficult. Plus, we're the second largest country in landmass. And at the time, we had 20 million Canadians stretched across. So that makes it way harder which is why Quebec succeeded with their sitcoms and shows, because it was an ethnocentric, singular, ethnic entity. That makes life way easier. But then I went to LA and I made appointments with he just died. All in the Family guy.
Oh, Norman Lear.
Norman Lear, but I couldn't get hold of Norman Lear, but I did get his second in charge, Bud Yorkin. I met with Stan Daniels, an expat Canadian. I met with Burt Metcalf, who directed the vast majority of MASHes. Mm-hmm. He was a Saskatchewan boy. So I dug up all these expats who'd been in the United States, in Hollywood for a long time, and they were all great. They all met with me. And I said, can you teach us how to do sitcoms? So a lot of them came up and directed and lit and did all this stuff. And, we had a core group of finally people who kind of knew what they were doing, but then they cut our budgets and 1,200 people were fired from the CBC and I wasn't allowed to greenlight any more sitcoms anymore. So I quit. So.
What, and we're going to skip because we can get into the web development, which I think is just absolutely fascinating. But for
nerdy stuff,
it's the best. For 6 years, you've been building up this channel on YouTube.
Yeah.
What was the genesis? What made you say, I think I'm going to put my pretty face on this YouTube? see what's going to happen.
Well,
because
as a creative person, you always want an outlet. Sorry, what's the question?
It starts off nothing like it is now. Mm-mm. I mean, your first episode is, Paul's Vlog 101. It's very like
with my son.
Yeah, yes. It's just, and then there's a dog, and then it's just Paul's thoughts and hairstyle. It's like, wow. It's like being in your brain for those first couple of months.
So, number one, because I was running this web shop, I hated blogging. And I thought, it seemed that vlogging, getting a business, one of my clients on YouTube would be more of a business success than writing these blogs, which they hated to write and would often get someone else to do it. And so I went on YouTube partly just to figure out YouTube.
Huh. Okay.
That was it. So what am I going to do? And the first thing that I thought of was, the person who I liked the best was Casey Neistat, who did and continues to do some of the best YouTube work on the channel. And he was right in the middle of doing a vlog a day. Mm-hmm. Like he did that 500 times in a row or something.
Yeah,
and just
some crazy
insanity,
number.
Some crazy thing. So he was heroic to many, many people. So I mimicked him to begin with. And I had some fun stuff in there. I did the one with the eyeshadow with my wife, with my daughter, because can you give me a smoky eye?
Smoky eye video.
But that came from looking at my stats. I went, okay, I've got 99% men and 1% women, so I'm going to have to increase my female contingent. So that's why there's my joke, right? Mm-hmm. So that comes out of that. Haley, can you give me a smoky eye video? Because I need more women on. And of course, I'm not going to get more women, but that's the gag.
Right.
And I'm always thinking of gags. And then I got into Hackintoshing because I needed a computer for work, but Apple was making shitty computers and I was a nerd and I found out how to program a Hackintosh. And so I went, well, I might as well document this. And that channel blew up. That became really popular, Hackintoshing. But then the tech business became boring on YouTube. It was no longer fun. The graphics cards were ridiculously expensive. Yeah. No one could afford the stuff. So my main impetus was to build a Macintosh for a fraction of the cost that Apple was building their shitty Macintoshes. And that worked for a good chunk of time. And then everything became the tech side became uninteresting. I wasn't able to connect with other tech tubers. They're very insular. And I like sharing.
They're very geeky. Very geeky.
And even more geeky now. And I got the new Apple Silicon Mac, and Hackintoshing was essentially going to be dead eventually. And then I went, well, what's the other thing that interests me is showbiz. And then I'm watching all the showbiz complainer videos. Everyone's fetching about something. And I went, you know what? They have no idea what it's like behind the scenes. And I put together one video basically saying that I only had one job when I was doing this showbiz stuff, was to keep my job. I don't care what you thought about the show. There's no quality dial on TV, only a volume dial. Like I don't give a flying fadoo what you think about the show. Like, you're complaining about it, but I don't care. I had to keep my job. How do I keep my job? I kept my job by hiring actors that were well known. I kept my job by making sure that I could never point to myself as it being my fault that it failed. Well, it failed because you hired the wrong dog. Oh yeah, because that's your job. Your job is to not lose your job. Mm-hmm. And that really caught people's imagination. So as opposed to just complaining about stuff, I was able to give them what was happening behind the curtain.
Oh, you pulled it back. That was wonderful. That there's an insight there that it's genuine. It's not that, you're just some punk kid screaming and hollering about DEI, Disney, blah, blah, blah. You could sit there and say, listen, I've been in those firefights. I understand why they make these decisions. And let me walk you through it. They're ridiculous, but they happen.
And the fact that you don't like it doesn't mean that it's not going to be successful.
Right.
Although the go woke, go broke formula seems to have had a much better success rate guessing what not going to work. Notwithstanding that, I came from an era where as William Goldman said, no one knows anything.
Right.
And I prefer to work in that milieu. Like, you take a look at Ahsoka. Oh, yes, that is a piece of crap. But I actually didn't mind the first episode. And I outlined why the first episode kind of worked. But then, they didn't follow their own rules. I even outlined the first episode of The Blood Origin, which was that horrible offshoot of The Witcher, where the writers said, we're going to make The Witcher that we always wanted, because the Witcher that the guy who originally wrote it didn't really make it, wasn't our standard of Witcher, even though he wrote it.
I wanted more.
Right? Wojcinski or whatever. I can't remember he had it all wrong. Just because he came up with it doesn't mean he was right. So we're going to do our own. So
and we'll show you. Yeah.
We had the black female lead who was like an expert knifer, and I went, well, the first episode, that was okay. I mean, it actually, had these elements in it, and then the rest of the series was garbage. So, but
it's not sustainable. That's the problem.
Not sustainable.
But
I would say that people wanted to hate it from the beginning because of its intersectionalism, and I refused to do that.
Yeah.
Even my review of the last 3 Doctor Who's, I went, okay, they kind of felt like Doctor Who, independent of all the bullshit that they put into it. And let's see the numbers. So I always go, in the end, do the numbers go up? Do the numbers go down? Nope, the numbers went down. So I guess it didn't succeed. And I actually liked the new gay black Doctor Who in the few clips that I saw him, except for the one when he was in the disco with the singlet and the dress, the skirt. I went, okay, that's interesting. We'll see where they're going to go with this, whether they're going to push it. But it's clear he has charisma. So my argument was, you can go a long way just purely on charisma. So I think I had the only positive review about the potential future of Doctor Who, just based on what I know about charisma and how it can carry a show.
Wouldn't you want to be in those writing rooms though? Like for Soka, you see the first one, you're like, okay, I got it. You guys have got a direction. And then it just makes a right hand turn into a wall. Wouldn't you?
Well, if I had seen those scripts, the first thing I would have said was they made the giant mistake of having the mystery box of Thrawn.
Right.
You always want to see your characters deal with the height of the problem. The searching for Thrawn is not a story. You have the setup, which was kind of horrible. I mean, the girl on the speeder, we all learned what kind of a girl boss. That was the intro to girl bosses. She's on a highway with no one on it. What is this, North Korea?
Yes.
And this speeder alone, and she's a bad girl. No hips, no breasts, fine. Okay. But Thrawn should have been found in the second episode.
Right.
Then they're dealing with the aftermath of having to deal with this massive threat. How it's not interesting unless you're dealing with the massive threat. That's not rocket science.
It's not. It's been 100 years of past movie writing. How now in the last 10 have they thrown all of that original structure out the window and been like, it's all got to be just this way, and the numbers show it's not working.
Well, Disney exclusively is like that. I mean, we those of us who were lucky enough to watch Godzilla -1, we saw a master class in how to write a good little melodrama. It's not a brilliant movie, from in the heat of the night perspective, or Panic at Needle Park, or The Confession. But boy, that movie was put together expertly. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, there's the Chekhov smoking gun. Okay, there it is again. There it is executed. Aha, setup, payoff, setup, payoff, setup, payoff. And I was crying by the end.
Yeah,
I was weeping. I couldn't even do my review without I had to do it twice, because the first time I did it, I was like crying through my review. Why couldn't Star Wars? Why couldn't Disney, Marvel, Star Wars, with the volume of access to the greatest talent available behind and in front of the camera. Why couldn't they have done that? Because they have an agenda.
Right. My brother Adam was working at Disney and left about 12 years ago. So right before the ship just started to take, and he said he could see it coming. He was in Burbank, and every day memos would come across his desk and he would make him shake his head. He was in charge of the web team, and he would just go, "Oh God, this is happening. It's coming. It's not going to stop." And he got out. And now we sit around and we look and we go, Disney had it all right in front of them, put in their hands, and they crushed it, and they were happy about it.
And they're still happy about it because they won't change. They won't change those rules that they've set up. We're going to be treated to the Acolyte, maybe. That's going to be fun. Oh. They're making a Ray movie. We just found out that there was some notion that not Romancing the Stone, gall darn it, the
Indiana Jones
guy. Indiana Jones was going to be Indiana Jones with what's the kid? What was the kid's name?
Short Round. The kid.
Short Round.
Yeah.
I keep on saying One Round. Yeah. I immediately went, yeah. Oh, that sounds like fun. You mean, yeah, a creaky old guy. That's fun stuff. I mean, you can have an Indiana Jones with a creaky old guy kind of at the very end of his cycle. That's funny. There's tons of potential for that. Oh, you go ahead. I'll just sit here. My back, it's sore. You just go on without me. I can't help you.
I find it interesting you brought it up, the Ray character, that there used to be where we knew very little about actors. Like when Pacino comes out and he's doing Godfather in 1971, very little is known of him.
Nope. Yeah,
now, if you're an actor, we know everything. We know what size shoe you wear, for God's sake. And then you say one thing or you're bland, and now people go, God, you're miserable. You whine, you complain about the fans, you're this, you're that, and you blame them for a failure of a movie before it even comes out.
Yeah, that's or you do it in a car and complain about.
Yes, your car videos.
That's where it came from. It came from both seeing Ewan McGregor and.
Please don't pick on her. She's a nice black girl from the,
That's where it came from. I went, okay. And then also TikTok stuff, people just weeping in there.
Well,
who knew how hard it was to be a parent? Oh, my God.
I could have asked my mother.
Yeah, you could have.
And she had a gin and tonic in her hand.
Yeah, if she hadn't run away.
Exactly. But these actors now, like, you go, why are you so miserable? Like you're getting paid millions of dollars. You're on these shows and they just come off like they're just whiny, miserable people.
I guess they feel that they're up against the fandom menace on the internet. They're feeling the pressure of just the volume of people commenting on their stuff in a way that's never. Yeah.
Because when we were kids, what paper did you get? Were you in Toronto? Were you close enough to Toronto?
Yeah, we got the Toronto Star, Globe and Mail.
Okay, so
Telegram.
Did you ever look at those reviews or whether it was a rock concert or a movie?
Time.
Yeah.
All the time.
And that was it. LA Times, we would get the Orange County Register here. But now everybody's got a review. I mean, good Lord, you could go on the first day and you got 30,000 people giving you a review on it.
I would bet you most actors who didn't even read their paper reviews, to be quite frank, I'm sure are not following the internet reviews either.
Right. But somebody's in their ear telling them, I heard on X that they gave you a bad review in your first 10 minutes.
Yeah. Can you please not tell that to me over the squid, please? I would.
What?
Can I just eat my squid? Thank you very much, in peace.
When you were in Canada as a kid, how were you able to see American TV? Was that easy for you?
Yeah. I mean, we had the Buffalo stations,
which
would have been NBC, CBS, ABC.
What was that like for you to watch American TV and get exposed into that world?
I didn't. Canadian TV wasn't bad at that time.
Okay.
There was Wojak. I mean, there was all sorts of amazing shows that were happening up here.
Wojak?
Wojak, yeah, which became that was ripped off and turned into
Kojak?
the coroner. No, that got turned into the coroner show with Jack.
Yes. Damn it, Quincy.
It turned into it was ripped off and became Quincy.
There is no original show. Everything's ripped.
No,
off.
but Wojak was original. Like, there was no coroner show at the time. I mean, again, it was an era where you did get the odd original show. And so, and CBC was very important, primarily for hockey. I mean, we were hockey nuts at the time. But, I mean, the American networks were super important, but also at the time, they would go off the air at 11:30. I mean, boo! This is the signal is the aircraft warning. In the next 10 minutes, we will be, and we will be going off the air and see you tomorrow morning. Thank you. Bye. And then we'd see this picture of a First Nations individual with a headdress.
Right.
Go out and
we would have that, and they would do the Star Spangled Banner with an Indian.
Yeah.
At like 2 a.m, and you were and you always knew, like, wow, we were up late.
Yeah, that was it. You were done.
Whoa.
And then 6 o'clock in the morning,
Mom and Dad are going to kill us. Like, we should not be up this
I wasn't
late.
allowed to stay up.
Anytime we saw the Indian, we knew we were in trouble.
But I mean, the American shows. I mean, they were, Beverly Hillbillies, I Dream of Jeannie. I mean, I remember them all. This was fantastic. Batman, especially the first color show that. Batman was just insane
for a kid, right? That blow your mind.
Oh my God!
How bad did you want that car?
It was everything about it. I mean, our landlord, who was the richest person in the apartment building, had a color TV. So I would always finagle my way to see the show with Kim Rowe. I don't know, begged, lied, borrowed, whatever, to go down to see the show every Tuesday, Wednesday. And my God, it was just fantastic. And then Star Trek came out in '67, around the same time as Batman. Man from U.N.C.L.E., just great, fantastic. And then the Avengers from the UK with Emma Peel and Patrick Patrick McGee, and then The Prisoner, which I barely understood when I first saw it when I was a kid. That was like, oh, this is fucked up.
It really is. Because you do those TV guide reviews of a era, and then you compare it today, and I can really see in your mind that,
next one coming up. I haven't done this yet.
That there's a spark. You could see that young boy, 8, sitting there on a couch, and you're just like,
I love it.
God, there was nothing better than 72.
No.
Oh,
yep.
Where did TV start to go wrong, and how can it be fixed, or can it?
Well, that's just, again, when I was at CBC, things were already bad, at least at CBC, and everyone was talking about it. But Grant Tinker made a comment when he was the CEO of NBC, just at the beginning of cable. So a fraction of the opportunities that we have now, okay? A fraction. No streaming. Maybe there was Showtime. Maybe there was HBO for sure. Maybe 10 other stations. And he said the problem with TV is that there's too much of it. So this was back when it would have been 1/5 of the too much problem that we have now. Like, I'm exaggerating, but
yeah.
But I think he nailed it in that you have to understand that creativity you can only spread it so thin, and there's only so many people out there who can do it. Even the Stephen J. Cannells, out there who could crank out TV shows, and there's just not an awful lot of them out there. Even though, and so you've got all this product that needs to be made now for Apple, for Netflix, for
Hulu and
Hulu.
everybody, Paramount
Everybody.
Plus, and everybody's got a damn channel.
So it's going to thin. So two things. Number one is you're going to see shows that the networks never would have put on, which is good. You never would have seen a Game of Thrones. If you watch my TV guide show where I talk about HBO, and they had already very easily picked off shows that weren't being done on networks. So they were filling a need. And the idea that, and so their stuff was so good that even though you had to pay for HBO, people were willing to do it as compared to getting the terrestrial TV for free. So the terrestrial TV people didn't twig onto that. The ABCs, NBCs, they just didn't get it. They were making bags of cash, which is often the worst thing that can happen to an industry because you take your eye off the ball. And none of them were going, why are so many people going off to HBO when our stuff is free?
Yeah. We're here. We're here. Come watch us.
And then what happened was they got, then the cable came out as a transmitting device, which caused all sorts of different, like the Discovery channels and all that stuff. The fragmentation of television began, and that was the beginning of the downfall of network TV. And then they also got hit by this crack cocaine called reality TV.
Oh, God help us.
And so reality TV was cheaper, faster, super popular, but no one watched them in reruns.
Yeah.
So that was the downside. So scripted material was way more expensive. And I did a comparison fairly recently between 1984 and 2023 of just how many scripted shows were there back then versus now, how many reality / newsy kind of shows are done, even though those are scripted also. Big Brother is scripted. I mean, let's be honest.
I worked on The Bachelor. It's scripted.
Yeah, it's scripted. And so you had 4 reality-ish shows, 60 Minutes, things like that back in 1984. You have 23 now. So they've kind of cut their own throat. And their market is now shrunk, where there's vast numbers of people, especially in the city, who don't even watch network TV anymore. They're all on YouTube or they're Netflix and things like that. And now they're at this rural rump, very conservative, rural rump. So they're more afraid to try something innovative like the A-Team or Knight Rider or Baywatch. They won't do that. Look at the shows. They've got like 18 different versions of CSI,
New York, and Atlanta. Now they're in Australia, for the love of God.
And then you've got Chicago, 3 different 1-hour Chicago adventures, hospital, fire, police, right? And the irony is, so fixing it, I don't know how you fix it. I mean, in the sense that this decline has been happening. I'm sure they've discussed it. It seems inexorable. The one thing that I do wonder about as a former network executive and a digital guy is how badly they have screwed up the opportunity with their streaming services. So CBS has got Paramount. ABC has got Hulu and Disney Plus. NBC has got, what's NBC got? I forgot.
They're not.
Are they on? Or were they in Hulu? I can't remember.
They were on Hulu, but I think Disney bought Hulu, right? So
yeah, Disney bought Hulu. Yeah, Comcast. So NBC was Hulu. So and what's happening too is if you take a look at Netflix, all these streamers, they do maybe 6 to 10 episodes of a run. That's not what the audience wants. The audience wants 20 to 24. The only people who seem to be able to do that are the networks. And one of the most popular shows on Netflix is Suits, which has got 9 seasons. Why Suits? It's not a great show, but it's addictive. And so the streamers are not making their own addictive shows. Plus, they don't release it every September and make it demand viewing. So they're missing out all the lessons that the networks not only have learned, but know how to do well. So if I was CBS, I would be making all the network series for Paramount Plus, have them on CBS, like the wretched Star Trek shows.
Right.
Or crap. But get 20 of them out there because I know how to make 20 of them. Then put it on my streaming. If I was Netflix, I would hire NBC to do a better example is Paramount that's got the Resurrected Frasier. I think Frasier's only going to have 10 episodes.
Yeah.
Now, maybe Kelsey didn't want to do 20 a year, but let's just use that as an example. CBS does Frasier 20 episodes, then gets it onto Paramount. So they have 20 episodes to do because they know how to do 20 episodes. Paramount Plus doesn't know how to do 20 for whatever reason.
Right.
So Disney put Ms. Marvel onto ABC, like way too late in the game. Even though I didn't like the show. The first episode was brilliant, by the way, of Ms. Marvel. Then
Really?
they fucked it up.
Okay.
Fantastic episode. Yeah, because on streaming, they don't understand the rules of shows. That once you set up the premise, it's not a movie. Stop expanding on the characters. Stop going to different places. Just have that. You're there, and you just keep circling the wagon around that same location. You mine that one coal mine until it's empty. They just don't get that because they hire auteurs and they think, oh, it's TV, but kind of like movies. So we're going to go to Pakistan and we're going to go everywhere and explore her thing. No, Ms. Marvel was Buffy the Vampire, the Pakistani kid gets these powers. She's going to high school and trying to prevent everyone else from knowing about her powers. That's the show.
Done.
Do that every fucking week. No, but they went and they had the evil, other people got the rings and do that in season 2.
Right.
Do that in season 2 or season 3, but they can't get that crack. They can't stop that. They don't know this. So the streamers don't know why television streaming, that the regular television worked and the network. And so what is it? CBS also brought Yellowstone with Costner to show that on their network. Should have been the other way around. You 20 episodes of Yellowstone every year. Once you got 3-4 years of that under your belt, then put it onto your streaming. I mean, it seems that they have no idea how to gain synergy out of their digital partners. I don't know whether my idea would work or not. I'm not saying.
Right.
But I can see the evidence that you take a look at the stats on all the streaming services. The reruns of the old shows are almost always the most popular. Look at Pluto. Pluto is building an entire business on the old shit.
And I bet it's getting great numbers.
Oh, fantastic. I think it's actually profitable.
You mentioned Yellowstone. I think that was something that caught everybody off guard.
Yeah.
That it was not within the dynamic. Taylor completely went off what the normal reservation was, and it's Montana, and it's conservative people fighting for their homestead and the whole thing. And whatever you say, half the country said, I want to watch that.
Yeah.
And they fall in love with, they want to be on a ranch. And I know we were just in Montana a couple years ago, and everybody was like, oh my God, everybody since the damn show's been on TV is coming to Montana. And it's been such a major thing.
Yep.
Why is that still, though? Like, Taylor's been writing 1923 and 1879. I mean, the guy's just going through numbers and writing stuff.
Right.
Why does it just take one guy? Why are there not more people that are seeing that and writing shows just like that?
Well, he's got power. So he's got completely, and he can do whatever he wants. He's completely independent.
Yeah.
So it's the same as Shonda Rhimes.
Yeah.
She's a very talented person. She can do whatever she wants. But there's only so many of them out there.
Right. I think, when you ever wrote, did you ever write as a team? Did you ever sit in a room with 6 or 8 guys? Yeah. Is that harder? I've never done that. I have one writing partner, so it's just the two of us bantering. But when you get in a room with 6 or 8, is that too many ideas colliding?
Well, you have the showrunner who says this is so. there's something called an expansion draft where you've got X amount of time to fill up. And in the case of a sitcom, it's 22 minutes. Not that hard to write that much stuff. But here's the situation. How many different, independent of what the story is, not independent story, but let's say your story is about a science project. Let's brainstorm the number of science projects that this person might be doing. Oh, what's the funniest one? Oh, okay, the one about the dinosaur. We'll pick that. So you're brainstorming elements to see which ones are the best elements to go in there. So there's lots of different ways of brainstorming. I mean, a showrunner will put an outline together and hand it off to a writer and say, okay, here, now write it.
Right. Go with it. Well, this is my rough draft idea.
Yeah.
When you're
it's all about choices. It's really about, all writing is choices.
Yeah. Do you remember
it's not magical.
Did you ever read those books, or maybe you read them to your kids, where there's a story and you go, are we going to go left or are we going to go right in this story?
Yeah. It's
really what it is. In the last 10 years, movies have been going to the wrong direction and they keep it's like, no, there's a cliff. Don't go that way. It's the old horror movie. Do you go into the closet with the chainsaws, or do you get into the running car and drive out of town?
I have no idea.
It's I'm glad you found a movie like Godzilla that follows it and makes you go, oh, good. Thank goodness. We got a decent movie here. Because that's all you really want to do. 2 hours, go down, sit with a loved one, sit with $12 popcorn and a drink, and just be encapsulated for a while. Because I still think maybe it's just the nostalgic age of my time where it's like, I like to go see a movie. There's one thing being in your living room, but experiencing it with a lot of people. You're old enough to remember where there used to be large movie theaters. There was the La Mirada Mall. One theater held 800 people and the other one held 500 people. And my dad took us to go see Empire Strikes Back, and we saw it with 800 people. The last Star Wars movie my kids drag me to, and I do it because I'm doing my fatherly duty. We're sitting in a movie theater with 60 people. Someone's ordering steak and broccoli beside me. They're banging plates. Someone's like, is this your scotch? They're passing drinks over. Now I'm in a large dining room watching a movie. It's no fun.
Might as well be in your house.
With my own bathroom.
So it's not like people aren't, I'm just going to look up something here. So I take a look at some movies like No Hard Feelings with Jennifer Lawrence, and I give her props for doing that kind of body comedy. But the premise of it is based on the fact that she doesn't have any money. I don't know if you know the movie.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And she needs a new car, even so at least she can have a Uber car to pick up money. It's the weakest start. There's these things that they do in Hollywood movies that drives me nuts. And that is, they start with these tropes, and they love doing the 15-minute character intro thing as opposed to getting them to dive right into the problem. If you take a look at Godzilla, you see this Mitsubishi Zero kamikaze plane landing. So right off the bat, anyone who knows anything is going, why is a kamikaze plane landing?
Right.
Like that's not the job of a kamikaze plane. So even if you don't know, they do explain it later, because the guy comes up and goes, we found nothing wrong with your craft. What's up, bud?
Yeah. You've already screwed up the one job you had.
Yeah, you screwed up the one job you had. And so the hero or the protagonist is the one who made the decisions, the one who dug their own hole, and repeatedly so, and the one who's responsible for digging themselves out. In No Hard Feelings, Jennifer Lawrence had no money, and by happenstance found an individual who was willing to pay her to boink their son. Terrible opening. Like, people needing money, and that's their motivation for doing what they're doing is the absolute weakest thing. The second weakest, I've inherited a house and we're moving there. Things that are out of the individual's control. Yes, that's true. Yes, that stuff happens. But it's the least interesting way to start a movie. An individual causes their own problem. Then they have to deal with it. Mm-hmm. Then an impediment is put in front of them to prevent them from dealing with it. That's how you write a story, at least on its basic level. What are your impediments? How big are your impediments? How many are you putting in front of the person? And so the Jennifer Lawrence movie eventually put that stuff in front, but terrible start. I need the money. I need the money. No, it's, maybe she's an OnlyFans person and the husband actually likes OnlyFans and goes, hey, we got this girl, and she meets her in the supermarket, and she's anonymous in her own small town, but he goes, hey, that's the OnlyFans girl that you want, whatever.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
And then she goes, well, okay, well, thank you very much. Hey, no, I want to talk with you. Since you seem to be an expert, I need you to deflower my son. Okay, so that's a way more interesting start because she's doing something that she has decided to do. Whether she wants to do it or not is another thing.
Right.
But she has decided she's going to do it. Someone in the neighborhood saw her do it and then assumes that they could hire her to deflower their son. That makes way more sense.
Yeah.
Way more sense as opposed, oh, no, I need money to be an Uber driver. Why is Jennifer Lawrence interested in being an Uber driver?
Right.
Why is she boinking the repair guy just to get free repairs? Like, it was such a weak opening. Terrible.
I didn't even want to watch the movie because when I saw the trailer and it said, okay, they didn't even make her look unattractive. I mean, I'm sorry. If you're that attractive, you're not desperate for money.
I agree with you.
Put on 40 pounds, take a tooth out, have a receding hairline, cut off an ear, something.
Yeah, but that's why I seeing the way she was is why I thought of the OnlyFans thing.
Right, exactly. But God forbid we go there, but that's the reality.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
that's that. And even the latest Ghostbusters one, they had her down, like the movie picked up, but it started out with her being down and out and being kicked out of her house. Not having money. What was her choice in not having money? Was it because she didn't like the job that she was in or the boss was a shit and she made the choice of leaving the boss? That's why she didn't have money. I could have accepted. But they just had her, I don't have money, and the landlord is going, no, you're evicted, go. Well, I might as well go to the house I just got. A horrible, horrible opening. You need your people to be the engineers of their own problem and their solution. Yes, that she engineered the issue that she had no money, but we didn't know why.
Right.
Like, I can't stand those openings.
You and I have an absolute sweet spot for a writer who I think when he passes, they break the mold. Woody Allen.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I can watch any one of his movies a million times over, and everybody always kind of pegs him for the comedy, but one of my all-time favorite is Crimes and Misdemeanors.
Crimes and Misdemeanors.
Oh, Jesus.
Great movie.
I don't have the poster up. Really?
It's a great movie.
Oh my God. It is spot on
but it's about a guy who's going to get away with the crime. Like you're sitting there going, is he going to get away with it? Is he going to get away? I mean, the tension was fantastic.
Yes.
It was a great, great movie.
Oh my God. And all the characters are put in the perfect place. They nail it. I got a soft spot for Angelica. She's just, I love her in that role.
And the lead male got an Academy Award.
Yes.
I believe.
ML.
Space 1999.
Yeah. Marlene, what the hell's his name? ML. That's his initials. He did all the movie Monsters B movies, but he's brilliant in the movie.
He's great in it. Yeah.
I love when Woody Match Point, all that stuff where he just writes characters and he just crushes you with the writing along the way.
Scoop wasn't good. That felt like, I won't get into it, but that felt like it was doing a travel log movie. He got into those where I just got hired by Brazil and I'm going to do a movie. And I got the tourist bureau just hired in Mallorca.
Well,
and I'm going to do one set in Mallorca. Okay.
Yeah. Once he goes to Europe, things kind of fall apart. Like he's just like, I'm in Rome.
I love Woody Allen. I mean, people talk about his special situation now.
Yes.
And I don't really care. No one is writing movies like Woody Allen. And I actually did a video on the death of Jewish comedy, something to that effect, that we're just not hearing, not Jewish jokes per se, but there's a rhythm to Jewish humor, and we're not hearing that or seeing that anymore. I mean, that nihilistic, pessimistic view of things, partly because Woody also loved doing things in bookstores, at operas, at things that were highfalutin art things, which nobody goes to or understands now. Right. A book signing was a big deal in a Woody Allen thing, or a movie, at some latest where they even had, anyway, it doesn't matter. I mean, he has this fantastic joke. I can't remember, it was Bananas, where one of my favorite jokes was he goes to an art museum. Like, who does movies in art museums, right? Right. He goes up to the girl, and she's in this horrific macrame hat and skirt and shawl, and they're looking at this abstract, and he goes, "So, what does this painting remind you of?" And she goes, "Death, destruction, the end of the human race, all mankind." And he goes, "What are you doing Saturday night?" And she goes, "I'm committing suicide. You free on Friday?"
It's perfect.
So that's Jewish comedy. It's nihilistic, but hopeful that you're still going to get laid.
Yeah, there's a chance.
And it doesn't matter that this is a screwed up woman, like badly screwed up. Right. But does Woody Allen like about bad sex is better than no sex or something like that? I mean, I had a choice between a divorce and a 2-week vacation. No, a vacation. A vacation only lasts 2 weeks, where a divorce lasts forever.
Well, you said it. Like in Annie Hall, there's bookstore scenes. They don't do that anymore. In Manhattan, they're walking through in the movie and they're running into each other in museums. That doesn't happen.
Well, because he was always making fun of the intellectuals.
Yes. Yeah.
He thought the intellectuals were funny.
Yeah. And they're easy. They're low-hanging fruit because they're so silly.
Yeah. And snobby, like when they had the U of T guy who did Marshall McLuhan, when this guy was pontificating in the line about how Marshall McLuhan said this and this is what he means and everything else, and then Marshall McLuhan, he drags Marshall McLuhan out from behind a billboard, and the guy's, "Well, no, you're wrong, and you're an idiot, and
you absolutely know nothing about what my theory is." It's the old, what I wouldn't do for a large polo mallet.
That's right. That's right. Or the two people carrying caskets competing for a parking spot. Like, I don't know. We're just not getting that kind of wonderful. And comedy used to be such a big thing in the movies too. Comedy was huge. We would go out and see a lot of comedies because that was funny. But it's tough for a comedy to compete now because you're going, I'm going to be paying $15 for this ticket plus the popcorn and everything else, and it's going to end up costing me $60, $100 with the family. And either I'm going to go watch a $200-300 million picture, or I'm going to watch this $10 million picture. Well, I think I'm going to get more value out of this $300 million picture. So that's killed comedies. Because you do the comedies on a budget, I'm not going to pay $15. I think there needs to be. I think the cost of the ticket should be based on the original budget of the movie.
That's brilliant. It should be, or I should get a refund, because there's several Marvel movies I went to that I had to sit.
You'll never get that.
And I'm like, oh guys, you're killing me. Please. Snap your fingers and kill me in this theater and get me out of here.
To go to a nice $10 million, $6 million, or $3 million movie or whatever, and go, I only had to pay $6 for this, and both the exhibitor and the producer are going to make money, the same percentage,
right,
based on the $250 million Ant-Man movie, I think that's fair. So I'll pay $15 as a percentage of whatever was the original budget, and I'll pay $7 for this other one. At least I'll have some choice.
My wife and I went, I forgot when it was, to see Phantom Thread, the Paul Anderson movie with Daniel. Years ago when it came out, but it was playing at the same time another Marvel movie. And there's 9 trillion people in line trying to jam into 2, 4, 6, 8. And we're 3 people walking into this little art film, and we're like, oh God, jeez. And you can hear, as well theater soundproof they are on both sides, I'm still hearing, get him, Captain America. And I'm trying to hear this nice moment of a man threading a dress. There's death and destruction going on.
Yeah.
Gotta love it. What do you want to see in a movie? Wrap it up. What do you want to see?
On the superhero movies, I'd like to see them go back to the 50s and 60s and use the technology of the time. And I'd like them to be more street level. And I want the bad guys to be less, universally powerful. I want everybody's powers to be nerfed. Even Superman at the beginning, he didn't fly. He just jumped over tall buildings.
Right.
So everything's gotten too much. So on the superhero front, I would love to see a 1950s Batman and just dealing with crime and dealing with I love gear porn. Gear porn has left the superhero movies. The first Iron Man was just gear porn. Mm-hmm. And then the final Iron Man is just, he's got nano suit where it just comes up and it's impervious and things just magically appear on his head. And that's one of the things these young kids are not interested in, is gear porn. And I think that's important. Which was tons of it in Godzilla, by the way. Tons of gear porn in Godzilla.
Interesting.
Because they had they did the meeting with the Freon gas. They were showing all these dials with broken glass and meters and all this green flaked off rusted metal all the way through it.
Wow.
Wall-to-wall gear porn. And made it feel they're pulling levers, right?
Right. Yeah.
They're grabbing radios, tubes, wires, guideposts, cranes falling down, even independent of the plane, right? Guys like gear porn. Yeah. And that's what they took out of the Marvel movies. No more gear porn. And the only other thing, and I think I see a trend to this, is movie budgets are now coming down. And that's the way it should be. You should be able to make a $50 million movie and make money. Right?
Yeah.
And
they're the size of some countries' GDPs. They're ridiculous.
Correct. And that's what's kind of happening now, is that the movies are coming down in price. And I wouldn't be surprised if one of the reasons Cavill was let go from the DCU is that they'll now be able to make a DCU movie maybe for $150 million. And then if it grosses $500 million, because that's been the average, you take a look at what are you making? It's only making $300 to $500 million. So stop making movies that won't, make the money, make the movies that budget against that. Even that movie about the gay guy who was out partying and humping other gay men, they made it for $30 million when it should have been like a $2 million indie film.
Right.
Like people, I think that's what's slowly happening, is that they're going, okay, what's the probable box office in this time? Let's just make the movie, because I want all the movies to be profitable.
Sure.
I do. I really do. And I can see that trend. I see that happening. So that's what I want. And I want lower ticket prices.
Oh God. I remember when my dad was like, $375. I got 3 kids. This is outrageous. It was like, and then we're sneaking Snicker bars into the theater. So that's right. That's how it was.
Yeah. You're not allowed to bring your own food. So thank you. Thank you very much. I hope this was fun.
It was. Where can everybody find you? Obviously YouTube, right?
Yeah, that's it.
But What you have? How many channels are active? Two.
Two. I've got my oldish Call Me Chato, which is my showbiz channel, and then I have a new sarcastic news channel called Appalling News, but it's spelled APAULING News.
Okay.
I was quite surprised there was not another Appalling channel on YouTube. I went, I'm going to search for. Let's see if Appalling there. Well, there's none. Okay, I'm taking it.
Holy crap! It's mine.
It's mine.
How
so
active?
Appalling News. Yeah.
How active are you on X or Twitter? Whatever that formerly known as
I'm
the bird.
addicted to X.
Okay. Instagram?
No, hate it.
Okay, good. All right, those three.
Not Facebook.
Yeah, and Facebook? Are you on? Are you No. So Facebook's dead to you too.
I abandoned Facebook.
Away it goes. Paul, it's been a pleasure. I absolutely love the work you're doing.
Thank you so much, Matt.
It is so much fun. It is now. I'm a subscriber. I get the bell. I'm like waiting for some kind of fun, sarcastic humor joke bit. My wife's hooked.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. She loves it. She's like, what the hell? Grown man's crying over a lizard. This is fantastic.
There it is.
Yeah. We've got that guy. My sons were all into it. They would go to Little Tokyo and love those things. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you very much for having me on. I appreciate you inviting me.
No, this is great, man. We need more, things.
And good luck with your films.
Thank you. We need more things like what you're doing to smile over, too, especially.
I view that as my job. If I can do it, then that's my gift. And if other people enjoy it, then I'm very happy.
All right. You have a wonderful vacation.
You too.
All right. Thank you.
No problem. Bye.
Thank you for listening to my conversation with Paul Chato. Please take a moment and check out his videos on YouTube. If you enjoyed this episode, please click and hit the like button, become a subscriber to the podcast. Remember to follow the Just a Good Conversation podcast on Instagram. You can find all of our past shows on the website at justgoodconversation.com. Thank you for listening.